Chapter 3. Grand Wizard of the Lesser Known Path. Johnny hardly slept that night. Thoughts ran through his brain, and when he did finally sleep, he dreamt that he was in an interrogation chamber with a bright light shining in his face, while behind the light, Maggie was pestering him with questions on his lifestyle. "Do you vote, Johnny? Are you in favour of the privatisation of state industries? Are you a member of a trade union?" She also asked probing questions on sloth, slovenliness and lust. When he got out of bed that morning, he wondered if he had dreamt up Maggie's visit the previous evening. It couldn't have happened. Ghosts didn't exist. And even if they did, why would one visit him? Even allowing for his delusions of grandeur, there was still no reason for an ex-Prime Minister to visit him, particularly one as important as Maggie. These thoughts ran through his head until he heard a knock at the door. It was Charlie. Johnny was a little surprised. Charlie had never come to his flat before. Sure, they knew and tolerated each other, but there had always been a bit of tension between the two. "Hi, Johnny," Charlie said. "Hi, Charlie. How's it going?" Johnny replied. They both looked at each other. Charlie was clearly hoping that he would invite him in, but Johnny made no movement in that direction. He just leaned on the door frame and waited. "Johnny, I'm organising a sort of trade fair here in Brixton. It's an esoteric health and well-being convention. It'll take place in a couple of days. It's going to be in the Brixton Youth Centre. It's on the esoteric sciences." Johnny interrupted. "I know, I heard you at the pub, but what exactly are esoteric sciences?" "The esoteric sciences, astrology, palmistry, inner child therapy and things like that." "Oh, I see. The old snake oil stuff," Johnny said. "Yeah, you could say that. Anyway, the thing is, we had a keynote speaker booked. It's a guy who is well known in these circles. He's from Azerbaijan, and he developed a science known as psycho-subconscious exhibiting. It's a science based on the idea that we need to make all of our subconscious reveal itself in the conscious mind through dream interpretation and practical assignments. Personally, I think it's all bloody rubbish, but these fairs are lucrative and we've already set everything up. We'd stand to lose quite a bit if the keynote speech was cancelled. Everyone knows you've got the gift of the gab, Johnny, and I seem to remember you giving a speech once on mythology or something like that. In short, we'll give you 250 quid to do the keynote speech in his place." "And why can't this guy do it?" Johnny asked. "He's in custody. Something about misappropriation of funds for some charity. He swears he's innocent, but it looks very unlikely that they're going to let him out before Christmas." Johnny's mind was working away, making calculations. If Charlie was offering 250, that meant he could most likely afford double that, and probably more. "So when is this fair taking place?" Johnny asked. "The 22nd and 23rd of December. "Ah, that's a pity. I've already got plans for those days. In fact, I've been asked to give a lecture on criminology at a university." This was completely untrue, but it had the desired effect. "How much are they paying you?" Charlie asked. He was a guy who, despite his deeply held communist beliefs, thought that money could buy anything. "Well, my fee for the day is 500. "Cancel it. I'll give you 750, Charlie said. Johnny could see he was on the verge of panic. He didn't know whether it was at the thought of having no keynote speaker or because he had to part with 750 quid, but either way, his fear was to Johnny's advantage. "Yes, but I'm not sure that my principles will allow me to cancel an engagement just like that at such short notice. I mean, I would be leaving them in the lurch. Not for that sum, anyway. Charlie's face seemed to change colour. It was as if a massive internal struggle was taking place within him. His complexion changed from pink to white to red, and then he spoke loudly. Okay, let's make it £1,000. Okay, done, Johnny replied. If Johnny had been a handshaking type, he would have shaken his hand. But as it was, he just said, so what do you want me to talk about? Just esoteric sciences in general. We'll bill you as something like the Grand Wizard of the Lesser Known Path, and you can just make it up from there. You drive a hard bargain, Johnny. Please just do a good job. No problem, Charlie. This type of thing is second nature to Johnny. Rest easy, your investment is safe. That afternoon, Johnny bumped into Slapper. She was on her way to an exhibition by a photographer friend of hers. Slapper was a keen photographer and general culture vulture. Johnny had been on his way for a few pints, but when she asked him, he decided to go along with her to take a look. It turned out that the exhibition was of a type of experimental photography by a man called Alvin Loyne, who was in fact well known inside the world of avant-garde photography. There was a guided tour of the exhibition, and the guide, a young woman, explained how Loyne had, as a young man, brought a 35mm photographic film cartridge to a shop to get it developed. When he came back to collect the photos, some of them were blurred. The man at the shop told him that this was because he had used the wrong settings on the camera. At first, Loyne was disappointed, but then later, while looking through the photos, he decided that the blurred ones were the ones he liked best. So he included them in a photography exhibition he had organised for that week. The blurred photos were the ones that inspired the most admiration, and it could be said that from that point on, he had created a new art form. The woman also explained that he didn't use any special technique, and that there were two distinct periods in his work: his black and white period, and then his controversial leap into colour photography. Apparently, some of his more purist fans hadn't liked this, as they felt he should have kept the raw look of the black and white. But he had felt the need to open himself and his world up to include the vibrations of colour. His technique was often just to wander the streets and photograph whatever he found interesting. Loyne had quite a following among the art crowd, and many people would hang on to his every utterance when it came to art and photography in particular. He was 67 years of age, but from among his followers he had met a 24-year-old art student who is now his girlfriend. After the guided tour, Johnny and Slapper wandered around the exhibition when Slapper suddenly exclaimed, "Alvin, how are you?" As luck would have it, Loyne and his girlfriend had suddenly appeared. Johnny nearly dropped to his knees. Now here was a woman of uncommon beauty. Of average height, she had golden blonde hair and a pale complexion. Johnny's experienced eye told him she was probably East European. Through a quick calculation based on the figures Slapper had given him, Johnny worked out that there was a difference of 43 years between her and Loyne. He felt that this was just morally wrong, even though Johnny had often had girlfriends much younger than himself. But of course, in Johnny's eyes, that was different. "I say, Slapper, how are you? Thanks for coming." Alvin was dressed in a sports jacket with a colourful cravat and matching handkerchief in his top pocket, and he spoke in a flamboyant way while making expansive gestures with his arms. "Hi, Alvin. Thanks for inviting me. This is my friend Johnny," Slapper said while Johnny stretched out his hand. "Pleased to meet you," Johnny said. "The pleasure is all mine, dear Johnny. Well, we must be on our way. I said I would give a short talk in a few minutes. Well, I hope you have a lovely evening, darlings. We will speak again anon. And off they went. The thing that had amazed and disconcerted Johnny was that during their brief encounter, the girl had barely noticed him. Her attention had at all times been focused entirely on Loin.